Here again, the Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment, and I am going to make that case every chance I get. So I will need your help on that.
Just ignore that.
Remember that bite from the election cycle when they caught Hillary off camera claiming that the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court was wrong on the Second Amendment. She was going to do everything she could to fix that. Today, we raise our hands to the heavens and we celebrate 130 days of her not being president of the United States. Amen to that. But regardless, if you think just because we've got Neil Gorsuch and you think just because we've got a Republican in the White House that your Second Amendment rights are still safe, don't think the liberals have given up the fight. Lars Dalseide is joining us right now from the legislative arm of the NRA. We appreciate having you. Lars, how are you?
Doing well, Mark. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, you bet. You know, I just bought a new weapon myself, I'll have to admit. I won't talk details on the air because I don't want anybody coming after me. But I was on one of their websites and I saw one of your legislative alerts pop up, and I'm like, hey, I didn't know about this. So there's a Senate bill pending in Illinois. In fact, you told me there's a hearing today that could have an impact on people's ability to find a gun store, I'm guessing.
Right, yeah. It's called the Gun Dealer Licensing Act. It's Senate Bill 1657. And what the proponents of this, the supporters of the bill are saying is this bill just is going to ensure that gun dealers are properly licensed when selling firearms in Illinois. And they completely ignore the fact that the ATF already does that.
Yeah.
That the gun dealers are working with the Illinois State Police and all sorts of other people. They want to add another layer of regulations, another body, another government body to oversee the whole thing, and of course, add on a considerable amount of fees.
Well, because they're desperate for money in the state of Illinois, and anything they can do. So realistically, would they just be doubling the efforts of the ATF? I mean, how much further can they go with their state regulations? This is kind of something the liberals have been pushing for a long time, this belief that the Second Amendment, based on some of the legal arguments over it, does give them leeway on restrictions, and they keep kind of pushing that as far as they can go with it.
Yeah, they keep on ignoring the fact that if you want to cut down on violent crime, then you go after the criminals. You don't go after the law-abiding people, the people who are following all the regulations and all of that. Well, what this is that we don't really know what the additional regulations are because that's not spelled out in the bill. What it does is it gives the power to regulate to the Department of Professional and Financial Regulations. These are the same people that regulate and oversee hairdressers and plumbers, for example. They don't have any experience whatsoever when it comes into firearm regulation or legislation, but they're going to give it to them and let them just sort of go through, and they have unlimited rulemaking authority. So if they want to come in and inspect the shop on a monthly or weekly or daily basis, they can. If they want to make people that work there at the shop sit down and take written exams or sit for interviews, they can. And that's one of the more dangerous things is that you're just giving them a blank check and saying, yeah, go do whatever you think is right. We know you're not familiar with this at all, that you don't understand the industry or how any of this works, but yeah, you take care of it.
Yeah, this is sad. So again, let me encourage people, if you live in Southern Illinois, call your state senator, call your state house member, tell them how much you oppose this. I'm looking at the names of the Senate and the House sponsors. I'd be willing to bet dollars to donuts that these are all Northern Illinois, Chicago suburbs people who are gun grabbers to begin with. But it's Senate Bill 1657, and make sure that you let your voice be heard on this so that, I don't, maybe they've got enough of a presence up in Springfield that they can force this through anyway. Is that the concern, Lars?
Oh, that is part of the concern. I know we had a good deal of people, both who are working for us and just Second Amendment supporters that were up at the hearing today. Haven't got my report back yet to find out exactly what happened and how things ended. But we have been contacting our members, contacting the supporters, and trying to get them on the witness list and have them speak during this open hearing. Because it's like you were saying before, that it's part of the gun grab effort. A few years ago, the city of Chicago had banned all gun stores.
I'm glad you brought that up.
They lost that in federal court. And so now this is sort of like their latest attempt to sort of push them out.
I just, for people that don't remember, a guy had a gun in his house and he was defending himself, and the city took it away, and then they griped at him for not getting his license to have it. And even after concealed carry passed in Illinois, the city of Chicago had these really onerous regulations that you couldn't have a gun store or a gun range within so many miles of a school and all this stuff, effectively making it impossible to open one. So therefore, nobody could go get their 16 hours of training to have the gun to begin with. I mean, they've got a long history of trying to shake down gun owners.
Yeah, definitely. And luckily, we had a federal judge say that the government has an obligation to protect constitutional rights.
Thank you.
And now you can say that, but then when you get to the officials up there, if it goes against their overall agenda, then, what are rights? We can just throw that out the window.
Yeah,
we were doing a little bit of research and looking at that. In order to make this revenue neutral, the licensing that they're requiring just for the dealerships. Now, this is requiring licensing for both the dealers and the employees that work there. But just the things for the dealerships would be about $5,000 for a 3-year license. And with that type of overhead and additional costs, we're looking at probably a drop of 30 to 40% of those small business owners.
Yeah. I hope that somebody, if it does pass, I hope somebody challenges it in court, because you're right. It's a money grab and a backdoor attempt to shut down people's access to weapons. What a shame. Listen, Lars, I appreciate your time. Where can people go to read more information on this alert and others for the NRA?
Well, if you're looking for the latest and greatest on firearm-related legislation, go to nraila.org. That's nraila.org.
Sounds good. Lars, have a great day. Good talking to you.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep, I appreciate that information. SB 1657. One more attempt by the state of Illinois and a lot of the liberals in the northern part of the state, because I know we have some supporters of the Second Amendment downstate. But unfortunately, so many decisions in that state from a budget perspective and everything else are controlled out of Chicago.